Hello dear students, I am Dr. Garima Srivastava from Lal Bahadur Shastri College, Lucknow. Now we need to understand the roles of international human resource management. We have already understood what has been the aspects of international human resource management, the different activities that the international human resource management performs, the model of international human resource management, and then we have understood the diversity factors or variables which play their important role in the management function of international human resource management. Now, it is important to understand what is actually the role of international human resource management. Now, if we talk about activities, if we talk about roles, if we talk about models, all they focus on certain roles that the international human resource management plays. Now, when we talk about human resources role in the organization, we have certain common roles with which the organization says that the human resource management has to play. First of all, it can be the motivational role. It plays a motivational role by motivating people towards the accomplishment of the organizational goal. They continuously seek to check that the satisfaction level is maintained amongst the people. Why? Because if satisfaction level is maintained, they will tend to remain in the organization for a longer period of time. So, there comes another role, that is the retention of people in the organization. Retention is an important aspect of human resource management. Why? Because once the organization hires the people, it tries to keep them for a longer time, because it invests into people in the form of salary, in the form of trainings and development that the organization gives it, then again in the form of experience that the organization gives to the employees. So, of course, there comes an important role, that is the retention of the people. Then once the people are there, once the employee is there in the organization, he is continuously being monitored, he is continuously being evaluated against his performance, and his potential is continuously checked, so that more and more trainings, more and more development programs are given to him, so that he can perform in a better manner in the organization. So, all these ultimately lead to development of various roles of international human resource management in the organization. The first one, champions of the process. Now, if we talk about human resource management in the international term, they are termed as champions of the process. Why? Because any process in the organization cannot be successful without skilled or efficient human resources. That is why they are called as champions of the process. They build commitment of the senior leadership. They work continuously towards the commitment and its implementation towards the other people in the organization. So, whatever the senior leaders, senior people in the organization, they say, whatever the policies, rules, regulations they formulate, all these are being implemented with the help of other people. So, if there is more and more resistance, the implementation of these policies cannot be done. So, there should be a commitment from the lower level of management, from the higher level towards the higher level of management, in case of implementation of various policies, rules and regulations in the organization. Then comes training managers. They also help, they are also playing a role of being trainers in the organization. What does training mean? Now, training means specifically providing skills in a particular area. So, if we talk about trainers in the organization, they continuously watch on the performance, on the potentials of different employees in the organization, and they continuously look into the facts, into the list, that what are the various skills that are still required in the people to work, so that they are able to work in the international environment in a very efficient manner. So, trainers actually find out the needs, find out the various factors of education that are required by the employees in the form of training. So, maybe an employee has to be trained in soft skills of that particular culture continuously. Why? Because if we are sending an employee from a home country to the host country, it is important to understand that the host country will be having a different kind of culture, will be having a different kind of language. So, these trainers will keep an eye on the change of this culture, on the change of this language. They will continuously try to at least give trainings in this changed culture, in this changed language to the people who will be going outside, who will be going overseas for performing operations. So, they play a very important role as training managers. Then comes the third important aspect as champions, monitoring HR processes. So, various HR processes are also continuously being monitored by champions of the process, that is human resources. That means when we talk about HR processes, they are the processes related from right from recruitment, hiring or selection of the people, his performance on the job, his evaluation of performance or potential of the employee. Then comes the leaving of the employee from the organization or his exit. So, continuous monitoring is required. Why? Because the human resource deals with various factors as to understand why people join a particular organization or why people leave this organization early. So, there is a need to compare the number of people who are coming into the organization while the number of people who are leaving the organization. So, if more number of people are leaving the organization, that means there is certainly some kind of problem with the policies, rules or satisfaction level of the organization. All this is being monitored, has to be monitored by the human resources only. So, they become the champions of the process by ultimately bringing about satisfaction level in the organization, in the employees of the organization, and also they try to retain skilled people, try to retain multi-skilled people, multilingual people in the organization, so that they can be assigned various projects outside. Then comes guardian of the culture. Now, when we talk about guardian of the culture, it means the culture of the organization. Now, culture may be culture of the organization may be masculine or may be feminine, or it may be time oriented, or it may be another kind of culture as given by Hofstede. Now, it is important that whatever culture the organization follows, the various pros and cons of those culture that is being practiced in the organization is done. Now, if we check out the various positive aspects and the negative aspects of the culture that is being followed in an organization, the HR, the human resource management, it is able to understand that which culture needs to be more flexible and which culture needs to be still rigid in the organization. So, again there is always a combination of all 6 kinds of elements that were given by Hofstede. First is supervision and management of implementation of global values and system. So, when we talk about culture in the organization, it means proper implementation of the policies and the values of the host country, home country company. So, whatever the culture is followed in the home country, in the organization, the first step of international human resource management is that the same kind of systems and values are followed in the host country also, because if the same culture will be followed, there will be a unanimity, there will be more of uniformity of rules and regulations amongst the people. So, by bringing about uniformity in the rules and regulations of implied on the people, you will be able to bring about more equity amongst the people and lesser of confusion is there. Then comes ensuring future leaders are sensitive and equipped to deal with global challenges. Now, this culture is being guarded, is being checked from time to time by human resources, so that more of future leaders can be prepared. They can be prepared to face various situations in the external environment, and they are able to deal with various global challenges that come into the organization from time to time. So, global challenges are always there when global expansion of business is done in the organization. So, these two things, the first two aspects, that is the champions of the process and the guardian of culture, this is important when we talk about international human resource management. So, moving down to the third one, that is effective political influencer. Now, understanding internal labor market where a subsidiary is located. Now, when we talk about political influencer, it is directly related to the labor market, it is directly related to the trade unions that may be existing in the international environment. So, they are also acting as political influencer, so as to understand the demands of internal labor market which is there in the host country. Then managing internal labor market for the global managers. Now, when we talk about internal labor market in the global environment, it means the managing people of international aspect who have been hired from the from that country itself, from the host country. Then when we talk about the people of the host country, it means the different mind frames, the different educational background, skill sets of that particular country's people. So, the management and understanding of this internal labor market is very important, and human resource management, if it has effective political influencer, if it is having effective kind of leadership, it will be able to handle this market, it will be able to handle these people very efficiently. So, you need to understand the mindset, you need to understand the various laws, rules, regulations that are being implemented in the other host country. Then comes network leadership, building strong internal and external networks. Now, when we talk about internal and external networks, it means building up of relationship between the internal people or with the relationship with the headquarter in the home country, and building up relationship between the various clients, various you can say prospective customers, consumers in the external market. So, they are acting as a mediators between the external and the internal environment of the business. Then keeping abreast with latest technology and developments. Now, whatever technologies are coming up, upgraded technology or developed technologies that are coming up in the organization, the human resource management has to continuously keep a watch in this trend. So, why to keep the watch on these trends? Because if we continuously keep a watch on these kind of trends, the changing technologies, the changing developments, now one or the other day organization has to adapt to these changing technologies. So, once the organization adapts this particular changed technology, the human resource management again comes into play. It tries to make people understand that the importance of this technology in the organization. So, why? Because of course, whenever a new technology comes into the organization, most of the people get confused that their jobs may go. Why? Because they are not well aware of this new technology, but it is not so. When sometimes what organization does, they start giving training to the people beforehand, before even introducing the technology into the organization. Why? Because to run a new technology in the organization, again the organization will be needing the people. So, if it is going to upgrade internal people, there will be no need to remove these internal people from the organization. So, this kind of relationship is also built up between the organization and the employees within the organization, and whenever the organization is going to adapt a new technology from the external environment. Then mobilizing resources to staff project teams effectively. Now, by network leadership, the human resource management will be able to optimally utilize all kinds of resources of the organization. So, when we talk about human resources utilization, the human resource management is not only related to resources, not only related to the people of the organization, it is also related to the other resources of the organization. And to effectively utilize these resources, the man, money, material and machine of the organization, these are the 4 M's, 4 resources of the organization. So, to utilize them in an optimal way, in an efficient way, it is the task of human resource management to mobilize these resources. And then comes the 5th one, that is a builder. Now, when we talk about a builder, that means human resource management is a base of any organization, is you can say a proper keystone of any organization by articulating various international human resource management basics. So, whatever are the basics of human resource management, keeping it into the veins of the organization is the task of human resource management. Developing basic international human resource management practices at beginning of the internationalization process. So, whenever the organization starts to internationalize, it starts to globalize its operations, the internal human resource management role comes into play. What by developing the basics of international human resource management, developing the basics or basic activities of human resource management into the organization. Then sixth one, that is a change partner. This is another activity, another role that human resource management plays. It acts as a change partner. Now, when we talk about change in the organization, it is also a specific term that has to be used in the organization, and change is a very you can say a complex process when we talk when we see in the organization. So, continuously calibrating human resource management practices as external environmental change. Now, it as a change partner, they also enable the MNCs to be very flexible in terms of HR practices to meet the challenge in the environment and cash on the business opportunities. Then comes the seventh role, that is navigator. Now, competency development of the people and developing a competent organization. Now, as a navigator, the human resource management always tries to find out people who are competent enough, who try to build up their competence, brush up their skills, and they develop themselves continuously within the organization. So, there is always a data pool maintained in the organization by the human resource management to a data pool of people who are continuously upgraded, who are competent enough, who can be sent out of the country to set up subsidiary offices in the host country. Then they always strike a balance between the long term and short term plans of the organization. So, they by navigating through the various skills and competency levels of the people, they also are able to strike a balance between long term and short term goals of the organization, because they know when and where to find the person who will be just right for that right kind of job over there. Then this navigator also balances between the global integration and the local responsiveness. So, when we talk about human resource management as a navigator, here the human resources also play a vital role in integrating between the global responsibilities, global goals of the organization with the goals of that of home country. Then again, it also balances between change and status quo in the global environment. The human resource management also helps the organization to bring about a change through the strategy, a successful strategy through its people and their willingness in the global environment. Now, we have understood the various roles of human resource management in the international aspect. We also need to understand that what are the various activities which makes international human resource management different from your domestic human resource management. Now, there can be four basic factors, activities which differentiates international human resource management from the domestic human resource management. So, very first one is the cultural environment. That means the cultural change in the international aspect. Whenever we talk about the cultural change, culture encompasses values, behavioral norms and the patterns of the behavior of the country. Now, when we talk about the culture, it means all those 6 elements that were being given by Hofstede along with the values, norms and beliefs of that particular country itself. So, for example, if we talk about US, there the culture of wearing jeans is a very acceptable kind of culture as compared to same kind of attire in the Arab countries. Then again, if we see the same type of attire in the Arab country, there can be a restriction, there can be a resistance towards this kind of attire. So, we need as a company, as an organization, we need to understand what are the various cultural environments that the organization is going to face when it is going to perform in various other countries. Cultural shock. Means moving to a new environment which requires many adjustment in a short period of time. Now, sometimes the people who move to the other countries, the people who move to the host country for the performance of certain project or performance of certain operations of the organization in that particular country, people are not able to adjust themselves with the culture of that country. Now, if they are not able to adjust with the culture of that country, there comes a term that is called as cultural shocks. Now, cultural shock actually means you are not, you as an organization, as a member of the organization are not able to face the new environment and you are not able to adapt to this change in a short short period of time, because whenever you reach to the subsidiary subsidiary office into that host country, it is not necessary that you have a larger quantity of time. Maybe in near 2 weeks or 3 weeks you have to adjust to the changed climate. This challenge the frame of reference of the expatriate and their national identity. Then people can get psychologically disoriented because they miss or misunderstand clues, which leads to lower performance and higher rates of failures of the projects of the organization. Then second kind of factor, second kind of activity that we have which differentiates international human resource management is the industry within which the multinationals is primarily involved. Now, when we talk about industry type within which the multinationals are involved, it is an important aspect to differentiate between international and domestic human resources. So, if we talk about the company, when we talk about the organization in global terms, that means global industry. Here the performance and competitiveness in one country is influenced by firm's position in the other. For example, Bombardier and Apple produce different parts of their products all around the world, hence they have a very globally integrated strategy. So, when we talk about these two companies, they produce most of their products in almost all of the countries in the world. So, when they produce all the products into different countries, the price can again be different in different countries. So, this is why because of the global orientation of this particular company. So, on the contrary, if we talk about multi-domestic industry, competitiveness is independent of firm's position in the other country. That means retail, insurance and banking. So, HRM is a series of domestic strategies. So, when we talk about multi-domestic industry, over there IHRM is only a kind of series of domestic strategies, where international strategies or international activities is just a part of the organization. So, if we see the third aspect of activities of international human resource management, that is extent of reliance of multinational on its home country or the domestic country market. Now, this means how far you are able to disperse your products in the other country. So, if you are more and more relied on your domestic market, that means if more of the products of the company are being served in the domestic market itself, over there internationalization process will not be given much of the focus. So, this is the extent of reliance on the home country market. So, if we talk about reliance of the particular product on the home country market, over there it is important to see that whether more of the products are being catered in the home country or more of the products are being catered in the international market. So, if it is moreover exaggerating, it is moreover focusing on the product in the home country, of course, it will not be exaggerating, it will not be focusing on the products in the international country. So, this can be a distinguishing activity, because over there if you are able to understand the importance of the disbursement of your product. So, there the importance of activities in the domestic will be more. You will be moreover focused on the people, moreover focused on the hiring of the people in the domestic market as compared to people in the your international market. So, if we talk about reliance on the domestic market country, so countries that have large domestic market that account for majority of businesses will have more emphasis on domestic operations. So, if we have more emphasis on the domestic operations, of course, what happens? More of the domestic HRM comes into play. Then comes the very last point, last activity of human resource management, which makes it different from international human resource management, from domestic human resource management, is management's attitude. When management attitude is more open to global expansion, human resource management strategies become more suited for the local market. and it understands, it is better understood by one best way, that is global mindset. So, if the people, if the people in the organization, if the top management of the organization is more inclined toward global expansion, if is more inclined towards distribution of product in the international market, then of course what happens, the role of international human resource management becomes more important as compared to domestic human resource management. So, attitude of management plays a very important role in its distinguishing activities between the both. Then we can have differences between a lot number of differences there when we talk about international human resource management and domestic human resource management. So, these are the following differences between the two. The very first one is the international human resource management addresses a broad range of HRM activities, while as domestic human resource management, it addresses a narrow range of HRM activities. Though almost all kinds of activities that are practiced in domestic human resource management is practiced in international aspect as well. But when we talk about international aspect, more of the variable contexts are coming into play. For example, we have already talked about various diversities like workforce diversity, language diversity, then economic diversity that is being faced in the international market. So, of course, other influential factors also come into play when we talk about international human resource management. Secondly, HR issues relate to employees belonging to the more than one country, or they belong to more than one national. So, of course, we are there to manage as an IHRM, we are there to manage people from various countries who are aware of various other laws, who come from various cultures, various language diversities, we have to manage them. But in case of domestic HRM, we are going to only manage the people from single nation. Then comes greater involvement of the HRM in the personal life of employees. So, when we talk about IHRM, more of the involvement of HRM is there in the personal life. Why? Because the people who are moving from home country to the host country, they are not only moving alone, their sentiments, their emotions are also moving with them. So, sometimes it is a necessity, it becomes necessity that the family of the person also moves with them, and if it is not possible, then again how the organization is going to make the person cope up with the different cultural shock that he is going to face over there. So, more of the personal life aspects play into when we talk about international human resource management. Then there is a very limited involvement of HRM in personal lives when we talk about domestic HRM. So, when we talk about domestic HRM, the other factors are the contextual factors such as culture, language, workforce diversity, they do not play that much vital role as they play in IHRM. So, moreover involvement in the personal life of the people is not there. Then there is greater exposure to risk in international assignments. So, when we talk about IHRM in context of international assignments, it is having a larger amount of risk of success of those assignments, because the success of assignments, success of projects that are being undertaken in the overseas market, over there lot of skills along with stability of the person, along with mental stability, then again the physical stability, psychological stability, all these things come into play. So, there is a larger risk that is being taken on the individuals who work in the international environment. Then when we talk about domestic HRM, there is a limited kind of risk in the international market. So, of course, when we talk about both these things, it is important that international human resource management has a much vital role to play as compared to domestic human resource management, and different contextual variables as well as the roles of IHRM need to be understood before implying to the various functions of IHRM. Thank you.